ओम नमो ब्रह्मादिभ्यो ब्रह्म विद्या संप्रदाय कर्तृभ्यो वंश ऋषिभ्यो महद्भ्यो नमो गुरुभ्यः। सर्वोपप्लवरहितः प्रज्ञानघनः प्रत्यगर्थो ब्रह्मैवाहमस्मि ब्रह्मैवाहमस्मि। ओम शांति शांति शांति। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेद विभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ओम शांति शांति शांति। मंत्र नंबर 6। यस्तु सर्वाणि भूतानि आत्मन्नेवानुपश्यति सर्वभूतेषु चात्मानं ततो न विजुगुप्सते। यस्तु सर्वाणि भूतानि आत्मन्नेवानुपश्यति सर्वभूतेषु चात्मानं न ततो विजुगुप्सते। सर्वभूतेषु चात्मानं न ततो विजुगुप्सते। Shruti is pointing out to us that one should know the self. Atmanam vijaniyat. May you know the self. Which self are you talking about? That which is the self of all bhutas, that self. It is not simply talking about there is a self within the body. People do talk of that Sakshi, that there is a self by simple Atma Anatma Viveka, and they say that Sakshi, consciousness, is self. That's not enough. That consciousness is the one, Atmani Sarva Bhutani. All the beings are in consciousness, and that consciousness is in all being. That self is to be recognized. As of now, the self is Pramata, an individual. And we see in each individual, each Pramata is different from other. This Pramata is Sukhi Dukhi, more often Dukhi. This Pramata is Parichinna. It takes itself to be limited. The Pramata is dissatisfied. It is dissatisfied with oneself. Pramata is lacking. There is always a sense that I need something more. That Pramata is a core person. In fact, last time we saw further that Pramata is an emotive person. Core person is an emotional person. Though it's a Pramata, means knower, Gnata, should be cognitive person, but that emotive person spoils the whole life. Emotive person creates all kinds of problems in life. Emotive person more often than not creates all kinds of pain in the life. How this emotive? What do I mean by emotive person? Emotive person means a subjective person. The person doesn't have objectivity. Apprehensions, anxiety, fear, worry, distress, these are all subjective. Sometimes you may be right, but the tendency not to trust is emotive. Anger is again emotive. Frustration is again emotive. All kinds of emotions overpower the core cognitive person. We have to make a paradigm shift, twofold paradigm shift. From emotive, one becomes a cognitive person. Cognitive person means an objective person. The core person should be objective and can be also. It is not a mandate that when I say it should be, but then as of now, the core person is an emotive person. That emotive person needs to be turned into cognitive person. That is the first paradigm shift one ought to work on it. What is cognitive? Who can take the things as it is. This, though we are pramata, basically cognitive, buddhi is a main thing. But then it is the emotive person that is formed. It is the emotive person that is developed first. And in childhood, the capacity to cognize, capacity to understand and think comes after 2 or 3 years when the buddhi opens up. Till then, there is the emotions have opened up. And that emotions are so many inside, which forms the core person. And that creates subjectivity. That creates, a person who lives in his or her own world. Sometimes I have seen people talking about ideals, talking about goals. All these are influenced by that emotive person, That core person is so emotive, his status, culture, his relations, everything is emotive. From there, first paradigm shift that is required for a seeker is to become a cognitive person, an objective person. They take the things as they are. Somebody very nicely, I often say this sometimes, that in life, there are no crises. In life, there are no problems. The right thing is you have difficult situation to handle. You have a choice to call it a problem. That's your cultural upbringing, You may use it a problem. Problem means a difficult situation. But that difficult situation impacting the person psychologically, that is emotive person. Vedanta, that there are differences or varieties in emotive persons, the core person who happens to be emotive. There is a difference. But then if that is ultimately core person, you don't need Vedanta. You need psychology to address that emotive person. And even the cognitive person is also not a core person. Because the cognitive also has a sense of limitations and divisions, etc. To be objective, take the things as they are. Yes, I have a problem, I have a difficult situation, to deal with it. Even if I get tired, yes, I am tired of it. But to have a sense of frustration and irritations and anger and anxiety, these are all emotives. Objective person is relatively free from emotional spasms, emotional bouts, and take the things as they are. That is called objectivity. And that word here, yastu sarvani bhutani atmannevanu pashyati sarveshu bhuteshu cha atmanam sarva bhuteshu cha atmanam tato na vijagupsate. That tukara, that person, Shankaracharya very beautifully writes, Parivrajak mumukshuhu sarvani bhuta. The one who is a parivrajaka means virakta, sannyasi. Sannyasi means objective. Virakta means objective. We have discussed this in detail in Tattvabodha and some part in Upadesharam also. Vairagya means to be objective. Sannyasa means person who is objective. And then mumukshu. Then one can be objective. You may find so many people in the society who are fairly objective in their life. Even grahasthas. And I have seen sannyasis being more subjective sometimes. And I have seen some grahasthas being just objective. There are objective people. But then that virakta or that objective person should be, if he or she is a mumukshu, mumukshu is the one who wants moksha. When one wants moksha, one goes to a teacher and studies the Shastra and gains the vision of the Shastra. That person, yastu, tukara, on the other hand. So, first paradigm shift is I learned to be cognitive in my life. People are very cognitive when it comes to someone else. Therefore, they can give the best advisor. Each one is the best consultant, to give advice. You should do that, you can do that. And they can view the things objectively. But when it comes to themselves, the objectivity is completely subjectivity is completely clouded. The one who is objective, first paradigm shift. Second paradigm shift is he or she goes to a teacher to discover a mumukshu. The culmination of vairagya is discovering an urge for moksha, discerning the problem and seeking the solution. And three things: discerning the problem, seeking the solution, and for solution surrendering to a teacher. There are so many people who want to do by themselves. That second paradigm shift. Third, first cognitive, objective, then discover mumukshu, then discover the problem and the solution is with teacher and one who has studied the Shastra. Therefore, the word is anupashyati. Pashyati, anupashyati. Two things. Whenever seeing is used in the Shastra, the meaning is knowing. Seeing means knowing. Why? Because when there is an eye witness, there is no doubt about it. Even in a court of law, if somebody says, I vouch and I have seen this, that eyewitness means it's final, ultimate. So seeing is in a sense of knowing. Now, the word is pashyati and then anupashyati. Pashyati is through the eyes. You see with the eyes certain things, but when you say anupashyati, seeing with the buddhi, seeing because it is backed by knowledge, seeing something more than what it meets with your eyes, seeing something behind what is seen by the eyes, to see behind what the eyes show. You know, there is a beautiful statement for medicine. In the field of medicine, for a doctor, there is a statement. Other than doctor, we see, therefore we know. Just listen the sentence. I sometimes develop the subject matter and talk for half an hour on this one sentence. We see, therefore we know. Correct? You see, and therefore you know. Whereas a doctor, he knows, therefore he can see. You go to a specialist, your general practitioner doctor doesn't recognize the disease. He knows, therefore he sees these are the symptoms of this particular disease. He knows, therefore he sees. That is called anupashyati. It is there, but not seen by the common eyes. You require an eye of wisdom. You require eye of knowledge. That's what I told you last time. The third eye of the Lord Shiva is not literally the third eye. That means Bhagavan Shankar sees something beyond what meets with your eyes. What is seen by the eyes, Bhagavan Shankar sees more than what meets with your own eyes. That is the third eye. And therefore, it is said the eye of wisdom is a third eye. Here, Ratiti, please understand, the perception of a wise person and ignorant person is same. Knowledge will not bring about any change in your perceptions, in your sensual cognitions. What others hear, you will hear. What others see, you will, wise person sees. What all smells, wise person smells. Perception is not there. Change doesn't change. The ignorance is in buddhi. Then knowledge also takes place in buddhi. And when the knowledge takes place, it removes the ignorance. And that ignorance, when it is gone, you see something more from the buddhi. Knowledge, the loke of knowledge is buddhi. He sees anupashyati through eye of wisdom, through buddhi. What does this person see? Sarvani bhutani atmannevanupashyati. Yeah, he sees all bhutas in Atma. And sarva bhuteshu cha atmanam. Sees the self in the all bhutas. Okay? Now, this is a limitation of language. This is the limitations of words. And this is the classic example of seeing the implied meaning, not literal meaning. Natu vachyartha lakshyartha. Tvam pada lakshyartha, tat pada lakshyartha, Dvayoho aikyam gnanam. The oneness of the two is knowledge. Here one should know what are we talking about of oneness. What do we mean by lakshyartha, implied meaning? When the Shruti says words cannot reach there, what does it mean? This is a classic example. All beings in the self. When you translate it literally, in the self, inside the self, in means what? In the self. Like this, my iPad is inside the cover. You can say that. Inside implies what? There is something outside and there is something which is inside that outside part. Correct? That means there are two things. What are the two things? The one that is inside and the one that covers what is inside. And the thing that is outside has to be larger, bigger, or more than what is inside. It cannot fit like some people's tummy, you know. It should be inside the shirt, but then the shirt was bought 10 years ago. And by then, the Madhya Pradesh has grown up. There is one state in India called Madhya Pradesh. So this middle Pradesh, the tummy has grown up. So shirt cannot cover, you cannot say the tummy is inside the shirt because it doesn't fit it. But you can say water is inside the tumbler. You can say the table is inside the room. Like that, so many. Car, I am inside car, etc. Now, if sarva bhutani atmani, all beings are in atma, then atma is very big. When beings are inside atma, correct? To say inside outside, that means what? There has to be line of demarcation, a dividing line. If from here it is inside, and then you can say from here it is outside, if it is really so. That means there is something else. Other than three things are there. One is Atma, there is a dividing line, and there are all bhutas. That means they are not one, but there are so many bhutas. So there is no Advaita, if it is really so. At least two things are there. Secondly, when you say Sarva Bhuteshu cha Atman, Atma in all being, when you say in all being, what does it mean? If it is inside all being, that means Atma becomes smaller and all beings become bigger or larger in size than Atma. If Atma is inside all beings. There are two things. No. This inside outside is with reference to what? Last time I had told you. All the ornaments are in gold. And gold is in every chain, every bangle, every ring, every earring, in any ornament. What does it mean in here? What does it mean inside here? All the ornaments are in gold. In gold means what? It is a very material out of which it is more. In Gujarati, and especially in all Indian languages, we have very beautiful usage to show the upadana. Suppose they have made some sweet out of milk, then they say dudhma banai. Dudhma banai. Dudhma banai means what? Dudh means milk. In milk, it is, and in English they say, we have made it in milk. They say typical Guju English. We have made it in milk. In milk means what? The milk is the material. It is upadana. Inside, not that is not the translation. The right thing it is made out of milk. That means of means material cause. Milk is the material cause. So self. Yastu sarvani bhutani atmani eva anupashyati. Evakara will see there are 3-4 meaning interpretations. They see all beings in Atma only. That means self is the very material cause for all beings to be. When you say material cause, that means easiness belongs to the self. All ornaments are in gold. That means the chain is because gold is. The easiness is of gold, of all the chains, of all the bangles, of all the rings. Easiness doesn't belong to chain itself. So, I am not the self who is inside my body. That self is self of each and every being. Satta pradata. The very existence, that easiness of a thing is because I is. I is. It is like the typical joke Swamiji used to say. Britisher came to some railway station, traveled in a train and came here to the railway station. And then he asked this typical, that person, station, who is the station master? That fellow was not in uniform. That fellow said, who is the station master? This fellow said, I is the station master. I is the station master. Understand? So, what is chain? Gold is the chain. Easiness of the chain belongs to gold. Easiness of the station master belong to I. So that fellow was correct Vedantic from the Vedantic point of view. I is the station master. It is correct. The existence, like actor can say, I is the beggar. That means the existence, very existence of the beggar is because I is. So I is, therefore beggar is. So it's, I is, therefore station master is. So he is right. I is the station master. Anyway, coming back to this, that means it's a upadana, means it provides the very existence to all beings. The easiness of everything is borrowed from Atma. It is one thing to know, they say, I know the self, I am witness, and things like that they talk about. But then that witness is Jagat Karanam. I am the very cause of the whole creation. Entire cosmos, universe. Anything is because I is. And the second line, our Swamiji's famous example, 100,000 ornaments made out of 1 ton gold. To see the gold, sarva bhutas bhutani atmani eva anupashyanti. Gold can see all the ornaments, 100,000 ornaments. in self. Because I am the self of all ornaments. I am the very material cause of all ornaments. There is the word eva. Yastu sarvani bhutani atmanevanu. Yastu sarvani bhutanyeva atmani anupashyati. Atmani eva anupashyati. Anupashyati eva. Evakara can go with all the three. There is a shade difference between all these interpretations, shade of difference. In self only or alone. Atmani eva. Anupashyati eva. Always sees only. No choice not to see. It sees only the anupashyati. And in self only. All interpretations are possible. Now, Sarva Bhuteshu Chatma sees the self in all beings. I see the self, all beings in the self, and sees the self in all beings. How? All the ornaments are in gold, and gold is in all ornaments. Both are not possible. Water is in the tumbler, and the tumbler is in water. How can you say that? Unless you have dipped the tumbler in ocean or river, that you can say. But let me put it this way. I am inside house. And how can a house be inside me? The adhara adheya. What is adheya? What is contained? And what is container? If the self is a container, how can it be contained by all beings? All beings are contained. The self is a container. Now the container cannot be contained by what was contained before it becomes container. So Atma getting dual status, which is opposite to each other. All beings also get a dual status. They are contained in Atma and they all contain Atma in themselves. So they are also container and sometimes contained. When it is possible? Only when one of them is mithya. One of them is, but that isness is apparent. 100,000 ornaments are actually. There is, but their isness belongs to gold. Why 100,000? You can make 500,000 also out of 1 ton gold, depending upon the size and the quality. So, the point is that ornament is not real. Ornament is not the vastu. Then this relation is possible. All the ornaments in gold and seeing gold in all ornaments. This is possible. That means all the ornaments are mithya. What does it mean by mithya? It is nothing but name and form. There is no real vastu. All the waves are in water and water is in all the waves. Wave is only a name and form. The real vastu is nothing but water. So also here the real vastu is self. That is I, Satchit. So this is a paradigm shift. The core person, I know this is Satchidananda. That core person happens to have a buddhi. Core person happens to have, or incidentally, the core person has emotions. Incidentally, core person has body. That's fine. It is not intrinsic to core person. Body is not intrinsic to consciousness. It is incidental. My prarabdha has brought me this body. So, that core person, a wise person, knows as a core person, I am the self in whom all the beings are. And I am the self who is the self of all beings, that he or she knows. But incidentally, upadhically, he or she has a body, mind, and emotions and cognitions, etc. And it has limitations also. But he or she accepts that limitation, that they are incidental limitations. They are not intrinsic to my nature. Consciousness is not intrinsically limited in any which way. But as long as the consciousness or I individual wields this body, incidental limitations are there to me. That is absolute objectivity on the part of a wise person. It's a complete paradigm shift. That is a complete objectivity. And he or she knows what I am. Actor saying, incidentally, I am beggar, but beggar has not affected me intrinsically. Because the beggarness is because of upadhi, the dress. Doesn't belong to me. So, coming back to this, the self containing all beings and self being within all beings, that means that so-called all beings is mithya. Means it doesn't exist without the self. It is the self that gives them existence, because of which they are. Yastu sarvani bhutani atmanyevanu pashyati sarva bhuteshu chatmanam. He sees the self in all beings. Natato vijugupsate. Sarvatra Brahma Darshanam. This is Brahma Darshan. That doesn't mean everything is merged and you see only consciousness. These are all stories. There's a famous story going on that so and so Mahatma was blessed by his guru and he saw consciousness. It's just an ocean of consciousness. If he saw in the samadhi, ocean of consciousness, the question comes, who was a seer? Unconscious? Non-conscious? Unconscious cannot be seer. If it is consciousness, then it cannot see another consciousness. And if it is non-consciousness, then also it cannot see the consciousness. If it is not conscious, it is jadam. How can it see that? In English pun, we had one brahmachari whose name Swamiji had given Ishwar Chaitanya. Later on, Ishwarananda. And then all brahmacharis went to Badrinath. And there is a hot water spring. There's hot water right on Badrinath nearby. 20 feet, 5 feet below, there is ice cold water below zero. So cold. And right here, there is a spring which is boiling hot. And because of the sulfur and all thing, that somehow that Ishvara Chaitanya became giddy. Almost fell unconscious. So one fellow translated in English, God consciousness has become unconscious. Ishwar Chaitanya, God consciousness has become unconscious. If it is God consciousness, it cannot become unconscious. And if it is unconscious, it cannot be God consciousness. So if you are a consciousness, you cannot see the consciousness. And if you are non-consciousness, then also you cannot see the consciousness. It is not seeing the consciousness, recognizing. That is why anupashyati. Seeing gold in all ornament. That doesn't mean ornaments will vanish. Ornament will continue. It is like saying, I saw gold in all ornaments and all ornaments vanished. Similar statement. When in Samadhi, I saw only an ocean of consciousness. Different waves of consciousness. Then you have to change the language and the tone. He saw that. You cannot. If it is consciousness you saw, who are you? It is not dissolving the name and the form. It is not dissolving the differences. In spite of the differences, I see non-difference. That is anupashyati. In spite of seeing all the waves, in spite of seeing the movements of the waves, I still see that there are no waves. There is only water. To see only water, you need not dissolve all the waves. Let the forms be. Let the names be. But the recognition, cognitive level understanding is quite different. I see them non-separate from me. Okay? So, that person, na tato vijugupsa. We have seen last time what is jugupsa? Strong feeling of hate, strong feeling of disgust, censure, or strong disapproval. That person doesn't disapprove anything. Completely objective. This is all it is. Doesn't have any hatred for anybody or anything. This is what is said in Gita also, 6th chapter. Sarva bhutastam atmanam sarva bhutani chatmani ikshate yoga yuktatma sarvatra samadarshana. Samadarshana. The vision of oneness is this. Samatvam, ultimate samatvam is seeing this. Nothing is away from consciousness. The entire universe being non-separate from consciousness. That fact is recognized. That is called, and that being recognized, he has no sense of disgust, no feeling of hate or abhorrence for anything. Why? Can you have a strong sense of dislike or hatred, let's use a word, for your own teeth? Never. I'm sure it might have happened in each one of us lives. Sometimes my own teeth bite my tongue. Tongue is bitten by the teeth. In a hurry, you are eating, tongue gets in between. And suppose tongue says, you fellows, how dare can you crush me? I will see that you are all crushed in one go. And there was XXX fellow coming on the road, 2-3 XXX fellows. And tongue uttered a few words and they gave this fellow 3-4 bites. I mean, they gave punches and all teeth fell down. And the tongue feels happy. Now I am happy because I taught them a lesson. Never. Because there is a sense of oneness. The I that is in tongue, the same I is in teeth. Therefore, there cannot be hatred for anything belonging to I. because it is one. So also in the world you see oneness, you may not have, you may not be comfortable with a given person. His or her approach and some intrusive talking may be hurting and you may want to avoid. That's fine. But then there is no hatred. Appreciate that I want to keep distance from this person. That's fine. There is no hatred. This is how he or she is, whatever reason that is. So that person cannot have any jugupsa, any hatred, any kind of dislike for anybody. Therefore, Bhagavan says, Adveshta sarva bhutanam maitrah karuna evacha nirmamo nirahankarha, etc., etc. Sarva bhutanam adveshta. No hatred for any being because it is the same eye. By mistake, your finger hurts your own eyes. You don't have a hatred for these fingers. You don't have a, sometimes your eyes did not see and you fell down in a pit. You don't hate your eyes. Oh, my eyes did this. Had it seen, I would have been saved. No, it is I. That person recognizes the self of all is one, and therefore, natato vijugupsate. There is no jugupsa, there is no strong dislike. In fact, strong like and strong dislike is an expression of inner weakness. The core person, if he or she is very weak, then to feel strong, that fellows will have strong likes and dislikes. And that strong likes means strong values. This is how it should be. And that will cause jugupsa. When you hate, it is only because of strong like and dislike. Pronounced. And I'm sorry, some people, I hope it is not inside when they express. Suppose they don't like something, they say, I hate it. Especially children. I hate you. So, and when you say hate, that means equally there will be I love you, also so strong. Life is like pendulum of a clock. It is not possible. Any kind of jugupsa, because he or she knows it is all mithya. When you know the thing is mithya, you cannot have a strong like and dislike. Because when you know the movie on in the theater on a curtain, on the screen, is mithya. And then you can't say, I hate villain coming. I love hero or heroine coming. It doesn't make any sense. You see what it is, that's all. Because you know the whole blessed thing is mithya. So, this person knows the entire world to be mithya. And therefore, there is no hatred for anything. And there is a phrase for that. A Brahmadi Pipilikantesh, beginning from Brahmaji onwards, Hiranyagarbha onwards, up to an ant, smallest creature, I don't have any hatred. I don't have any ill feeling. That is real freedom. That is inner freedom. Freedom is not external. This is inner freedom. And as I said, the intolerance about what others possesses only causes jugupsa for him or her often. There are a few other reasons also, which I said last time. But then that is not the point here. The point is, these are absent and therefore such feelings are not there. Intolerance is not. And this vision is born out of teachings of Shastra by teacher. Shastra, Guru, Upadeshat, Anupashyati. Because of that Upadesha, he or she can see something more than what it meets with the eyes. Having said that, he continues the same vision and the phalam of the knowledge in the seventh mantra. We will chant this. Yasmin sarvani bhutani, Yasmin sarvani bhutani, Atmaiva bhutvijanatah, Atmaiva bhutvijanatah, Tatra ko mohah kashokah, Tatra ko mohah kashokah, Ekatvamanupashyatah, Ekatvamanupashyatah, Yasmin sarvani bhutani, Yasmin kale, what the time, all beings, Atmaiva bhut, they are non-separate from Atma. When he knows that, Tatra ko mohaha osho. That means when he or she sees Ishavasya Idam Sarvam, there is nothing separate from Ishvara. For that person, there is no shoka and there is no moha. Because ekatvam anupashyata. He has a vision of oneness. Again, here it is mentioned, anupashyataha. Natu pashyataha anu. Shastracharya upadeshat anu. Only after when teachers have taught him Shastras, he has learned, and then he gets this. We'll continue this next. Tomorrow. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. See you tomorrow.